Hello and welcome to another episode of Bollywood with Brits. Today we will be discussing an iconic movie, a movie that redefined an era, a movie that broke stereotypes on masculinity in Hindi cinema and showed women that they can have it all. They can have love with family support. The movie we are talking about is Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge DDLJ. Colin has watched it with me and he has his own views on it. For all our British viewers, I would like to give a summary of the story. At its core, it's a simple love story where two young people fall in love on a European holiday. Now, the twist happens because Simran, our actress, her father has already decided who her groom would be back in India. And now Raj and Simran has not communicated their love to each other but understands it through emotions. And Raj goes all the way over to India to get his love back. Now Raj is slightly flirty, cute, romantic boy who sings in leather jackets, fails in London, and travels all over. Whereas Simran is a simple Indian girl who makes her dreams and sings about them and wants to elope with Raj eventually. However, Raj convinces her that we need to do this with their father's permission and the family support, and they eventually get it. And that whole journey is what DDLJ is about. One of the essential reasons why we picked this movie is because when I asked Colin of what his Indian name would be, he said Raj, and I was just surprised at this. The story he tells me is that one of his friends was named Raj in London, and then recently Shah Rukh Khan and Kajol inaugurated the 25th anniversary statue in Leicester Square. So I thought that would be a good pick to discuss. Yeah. Let's dive into what he thinks about it. So, our first question for the podcast is, who did you think was the coolest character in this movie?
Easily, hands down, Raj's dad. He was just stylistic. He was, the most eligible bachelor in that entire wedding.
Wow.
Chatting up the aunts. He got in a fight. And to be honest, he was just, I loved the kind of reaction to everything that he had. He was always kind of just like, yeah, you messed up, but it's okay. And I don't know, I wish my dad was that cool.
Aww. Anupam Kher sir is an amazing actor. And I love the first scene where he introduces all his ancestral family and he's like, oh god, this person has failed here, this has failed, and you have just rewritten history by failing in London.
Well, he failed at a higher level, right? That's the important bit.
Yeah, quite an
Progress.
achievement. Certainly deserves to be the coolest character in the movie, isn't it? My next question to you would be, what was the most confusing bit for you while watching this movie?
So, I think for me, the bit that really confused me is how, Raj and Simran didn't end up on an Interpol watch list, right? They get drunk, they smash a shop window, they steal a dress. She then goes and basically freezes to death in a mountain somewhere, dancing in it. And yet, that just seems to, nobody bats an eye, nobody talks about that kind of, a run-in with the police or anything like that. It just seems to be a thing that just disappears, and that's it. And that, maybe I'm reading too much into this. Maybe the realism isn't supposed to be there, but it just seems very odd to me.
It is Bollywood. Why are you trying to find so much realism into it? And we fantasize about going and breaking windows and having stuff, but we're not doing that. From the same line of thought, what did you find the most funny thing about the movie and why did you find it funny?
The interactions between Raj and Simran's dad were just amazing. I think, the bit where they first kind of, he doesn't know that Simran's dad is Simran's dad, right? And then he goes into the wedding and he's like, oh crap, it's you. And there's that whole bit where, he's trying to avoid him and he's like, what is it? Something like, I live in London. It's like, oh, I've never been to London. And it's like, oh, this is Raj from London. And I also really like the pigeon bit, the way that he sees the whole thing, tries to kind of, find some common ground and ends up changing the way that he kind of calls the pigeons and stuff like that, which to my ears is owl, like quite similar to when you hurt yourself. But yeah, you've told me since that that's not what
So
he's saying.
is that how you're feeding pigeons or ducks now? We've all seen that video of yours. Can you do
Yeah,
that?
no, I can most definitely get hurt feeding pigeons. I mean, it's kind of weird as well because I guess like it shows the differences in the way that people would pronounce the way that a pigeon makes a noise, right?
It's not a pigeon's noise. It's just calling. The word ow means calling. So it
Really?
means
No, right.
ow, ow. I mean, come, come, come,
Yeah,
kind of a
okay.
thing.
Because yeah, we were
Oh
just.
my god. So all this while you thought ow, ow, ow is we thought pigeons make noise?
I mean, when we do things with pigeons, right? It's always just a case of we go "Krrr, krrr, krrr," and stuff, right? To
So
try and
he
talk
was
to them.
also doing that, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is hilarious. I find this to be more hilarious.
This is the cultural exchange, right? I now know.
So I think I've told you this before that this movie is very iconic, and it had a 25 years dedicated show in one of our theaters called Maratha Mandir, and it has been a part of the culture. It has always been there. Did you think that the story deserved that kind of attention?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you told me before that Shah Rukh Khan told everybody how to love, right? That there
Yeah.
was that kind of president there, and I think if you think about the way that the Titanic was like 97, and yet there's still Titanic expeditions. There's still all of these things that go on. I do think that yeah, like if you've got a film that strikes culturally, that it's worthy of like dedication. It's worthy of statues and other things like that because yeah, it means something to people.
Yeah, definitely. Because 90s women, Shah Rukh Khan taught them how to love, and you are now playing that magical tune on ukulele. I think you'll get Indian women's easily out there in London. Just go and have a try.
Okay, when's the next train?
How does Indian romance sit with you? Is this how you thought marriages are in India?
So I always find it fun when watching Bollywood and the way that essentially the way that the boy gets the girl is essentially by irritating the hell out of her. I think the dynamic of the movie that makes it interesting is the fact that obviously they go through that whole kind of, I guess, trope of like he's very annoying, then she realizes that she likes him, and then obviously like they have that kind of yeah, oh, we do actually like each other kind of moment, and that's like nice and heartwarming. But then she has to deal with the fact that yeah, her dad has kind of like set her up to marry. He's his best friend's like son,
Yeah.
and I think it's interesting for me because I guess ultimately that type of marriage arrangement thing is something that in movies tends to come down to kind of like period dramas. So like 18th century, 19th century. You still have a lot of the thing of like we were going to tie these two families together for like money reasons and stuff like that. Although I guess the way that they explain it in DDLJ is that it's more about becoming a bigger family and stuff like that. But I think for us, modern kind of UK cinema tends to revolve more around things like two people fall in love, but I don't know, let's say like one of the parents doesn't like that person, and that the story is that person then has to like win that parent over in order for it to do that, or I guess what Simran's mum was saying was like you should run away and elope and stuff. So there would be a story about that. So yeah, not really a kind of being I guess drawn or like not drawn torn between the person that she loves and the person that she's been told that she has to kind of like learn to love and marry and stuff like that.
So, but did you think that this is how Indian marriages were before you watched the movie?
I mean, I've known people who have had arranged marriages, and I've known people that have got married because they like ended up finding somebody. So it's not necessarily something that I thought was 100% widespread.
True. But So this brings me to the second question, which is on the same track. Do you think it romanticized approval more than love at some point? Because half of the other half is all based on the approval.
Yeah, but see, I see it as more like the approval is the ultimate part of the love because, similar to what I was saying, right? Her mum's saying, "Oh, you should totally like run away. You don't need the approval. You should just enjoy the love bit." But the argument was that getting the approval means that you're not taking that person. You're taking that person as like the whole part of who they are, which to me would be the love bit, right? Because ultimately you're not afraid to deal with the consequences of essentially the death stare. If you're willing to stand up to that stare, I would say that you definitely love that person.
Oh, Amrish Puri sir is known for his scary and scary looks.
Oh,
Is the
terrifying.
villain of his
Terrifying.
era. Cool. While talking about arranged marriages, from what I understand from British period dramas, arranged marriage is not a completely new concept, right? Because previously the marriages were happening in Britain based on uh, the right arrangement of two people, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a certain subset of society, right? I don't think that people who were the lowest of the low working class were, having these types of arrangements. But yeah, in like the high society, which is what all those period dramas are based around, it's aristocrats and stuff like that who
Yeah.
ultimately are, yeah, being told by their mother that they have to go and, marry some duke somewhere, but, they fall in love with the stable boy, and then there's this whole thing about like how ultimately they have to make the choice, and unfortunately in those stories the right choice is the opposite of what happens in DDLJ. It's always like you have to get rid of this love that you have because this person is the person that is gonna do you right essentially. But it's not really about doing you right; it's more about doing the family right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that kind of, yeah, we're doing this basically to tie two families together, not necessarily as like friendship and family and stuff like that, but more about, they've got some form of commodity that we want to acquire, so therefore we're going to pull them all together, and it's essentially how the British Empire worked.
Of course, we watch Bridgerton, don't we? So, who, as per your culture, gained more from this union, Raj or Simran?
Yeah, so I would say from the British perspective, ultimately she married into wealth, which is she got the better part of that deal, essentially. Plus he loved her enough to go all the way to India, deal with somebody else's family for however many nights, you know, just so that he could try and win her dad over, which I would say is like a pretty decent, it's not like it's just money. He's also backed it up with his commitment to, proving the point. And, also you could make a counter argument in a way, right? That he got the better deal because he's now got a terrifying death stare that he can utilize to crush his enemies whenever somebody crosses him. So,
As a counter to your argument, of course, he proved his love by going all the way to India and doing those things. However, the first half, he's all about his immaturity, him failing in the university, him being late for trains, not following itineraries, stealing from his father, taking a cultural bait. And basically, because of him, she missed the train. And considering all of them, all of that, he was very immature, dad reliant, spoiled boy. How would you say that how would you justify that he got a very matured girl in
yeah,
this?
but I think in UK cinema, you have then that kind of like lovable rogue slash, like Hugh Grant built his entire thing on being some bumbling idiot who's all like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I think that is just a thing that we have where it's like the guy in the story is a bit rubbish, and then through his willingness to like prove his worth ends up getting like, the person that he wants to get with, who tends to also be, quite mature because they hate him and his personality originally, right? Because he's annoying and not able to do things. No?
So, are we now comparing it with Notting Hill?
Um, I mean, I guess if I can remember that movie, because it's been a very long time since I've seen that. That is more like, yeah, there's a guy who hasn't got his act together. He falls in love with an American actress or something like that, I think. And then it turns out that, she loves that part of him, but then she has this Hollywood boyfriend who ultimately then is like, showing her that she has this other life. And then he has to go and basically run after her to show him that like she can have this nice little life in London, which in a way has some parallels with this story, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely think you can compare it.
So I had this question written and fits right now that do you think is Simran actually choosing Raj, or is she choosing the least stressful person in the room, and that makes her think that she's really in love with this man?
Yeah, I mean, I think to be honest, she's basically just choosing the man that she dreamt about, right? So at the start of the movie, she has these thoughts and dreams about a particular person, and I would also make the argument that, to be honest, Raj does cause her a lot of stress. He's got his European trip shenanigans, which can't have been that fun, right? And then he's having to like find ways of basically inserting himself into all of those wedding ceremony things that to replace the groom, so that it's like he's doing it that with her, and so I mean that can't be that easy to deal with. And then I think the point of the story for me anyway was that the more organic love is a right pain to deal with, and you have to go through a lot of these hurdles, but it leads to a happier life because you're having to actually like jump and prove all of these things to each other, and eventually like her dad sees that, right? So then that stress completely gets removed.
So you believe that she was actually in love with her?
Yeah, I think she loved him, he loved her.
Oh,
Story as old as time, right?
cool. So you are from London, right? I thought in this movie a lot of immigration guilt has been talked about. So Amrish Puri sir was really uh, thought that he owed something to India because he had moved to London. There are also dialogues reflecting that, and all the mustard field songs which reflects the same thing. So him giving his daughter back in marriage was a way to reconnect with his roots. Do you find that in immigrants that they have a guilt about coming over here?
So, I mean, I guess the thing is that we've got to take the movie for what time it was in. So, I grew up in London in the 90s. Where I was, which is kind of like southwest London, there were a few enclaves of kind of like Indian culture and stuff like that. So there were communities there, kind of similar to what were in this movie. And I would say that the friends that I had from there, obviously these are kind of people whose parents came over and then their children were like, born in Britain and stuff like that. But I think, their parents would take them on holiday a lot and do a lot of the travelling. And yeah, sometimes there was a lot of kind of people who felt that, they were disconnected, and obviously like their parents were a bit strict about enforcing the culture, right? Because they didn't want them to lose their roots and stuff. But I think these days, because the internet is now a thing, there's a lot less of that, right? There's a lot more people being able to jump on calls, and a lot more people able to essentially, if it's a video call, see all of the sites and, be reminded, obviously, yeah, you're not going to be able to walk through the fields, but you're going to be able to at least like understand kind of what's going on. And yeah, just generally feel closely connected to those people.
This brings us to our last question. If DDLJ was set in London today, where would you think the climax would happen? Would it be on the tube platform, Tesco aisle, or the immigration queue?
I mean, I love the idea of, there being a modern bit, you're queuing to pay for your goods in Tesco, and then Simran's like, oh, I've forgotten some onions, and her dad's tightly holding her, and it's like, no, you can't go. But yeah, I mean, I'd imagine, you know, if I think about kind of like, yeah, where the trains are these days, right? It's probably unlikely that this would happen because there's ticket barriers.
Yeah, and the door has to close before the train actually
Exactly,
starts
right?
moving. Yeah.
So modern life has ruined this climax.
See, there's no romance left anymore.
No.
I find that last bit really powerful. That go Simran, go live your life. It's just the realization, but it had to happen until the last moment when the train was actually really fast.
Yeah, and then there's going to be a guy who's just like, sorry, love, I know that you're like, you know, trying to live your life, but you haven't got a ticket, so you can't come
so
on.
British. Sorry, love. Well, yeah, I think so. We'll keep that love to the 90s and we will keep reliving it through Shah Rukh Khan and Kajol. So thank you so much, Colin, for your time today. I think we have had a healthy discussion of how DDLJ would have been or could be perceived in Britain. So yeah, this brings us to the end of the next episode of Bollywood with Brits. Stay tuned for more and thank you for listening. Cheers.